Hello, hello. Welcome back to our second video on LSAT's migration to Kaplan's Learning Path LMS. I'm Brandon, and if you recognize me, you probably watched the previous video. And if you did, thank you. I've been told that reached about 70 unique views on YouTube. So glad you guys watched the video. Glad this information is being consumed. And if you did watch it, leave a comment down below. But I'm excited to be back here. As I said in the previous video, the purpose of this video today is to talk about what the learning path is going to look like for LSAT's On Demand course. So what I'm sharing on screen here is actually the very first thing that students will see when entering their newly purchased product. So right off the bat, it tells students to set up their schedule. Now, if you watched last week's video, the schedule is like the main component of the Learning Path LMS. It tells students what to do and when to do it, really putting together all those different components of the LSAT course, whether it's the mastery quiz, review quiz, core lessons, into one cohesive schedule. So let's build that right now. So again, every student will come across this schedule setup tool the first time they log in. So let's go. The first thing they're prompted to do is to pick a test date. Go ahead and pick June 6th. And then right off the bat, it's telling me how many hours I need to put in. So let's say I have to, it's telling me that 39 hours is not enough time. So I'm going to up it to 10. It's also asking me what days off I want to choose. Let's take off the weekends. Do I want to do any special rules for particular weeks? And at this point in the student studies, they're probably not going to bother doing this. They're just going to try to build the schedule. So right now I've given myself 115 hours of availability between now and June 6th, 10 hours a week. Let's see what it does. So there you go. Our calendar is built. The system took in our inputs, which was test date of June 6th, as well as my weekly availability, which was 10 hours. It said you got about 115 hours between now and then, and it then populated my calendar with the highest yield material based on my available time. Now that last bit there is where the magic is. What the LSAT team has done is they've combed through all the materials available and they've assembled it in the ideal instructional order. So looking here, you start off with the Getting Started module, then you take your diagnostic, and that continues for the next 10 weeks in my case. And then the other factor here is yield, and we haven't spoken about that yet. It's a bit more complex. Let's dig into it. The first thing you have to understand is depending on a student's total availability, whether or not I had 80 hours or 100 hours or 200 hours, the calendar assignments will differ based on the student availability. In other words, the calendar expands to match the student's availability. If a student has 80 hours, there'll be less assignments. If they have 100 hours, there'll be more. How does the calendar decide what gets added or what gets removed? That's where this criteria of yield comes in. So each one of these assignments on the calendar have a yield. Yield doesn't always mean test maker yield. It's just how important is that assignment to the student's total experience. Now we've actually simplified this a bit for our launch. We've actually made it so that items further on in the instructional order have lower yield. So that means that as a student's instructional availability increases, their calendar gets longer. I want to be precise here because that means that if a student has 80 hours versus a student having 100 hours, the first 80 hours of both of those students' experiences will be the same. So I hope that gives some relief to tutors or teachers if you're concerned about the flexibility or the dynamics of the calendar. For the most part, it will be the same for each student. Only for some students who have more time, they'll have more assignments between now and test day. Now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, okay, that's great. The calendar will expand. That's no problem. Students study more. That's good. But what happens if a student doesn't give enough time? Can the calendar shrink to 20 total hours, 40 total hours? What happens if a student tells me they can study for 2 hours a week for 10 weeks? That's 20 hours. Is 20 hours enough time to study for the LSAT? Well, we don't think so. So there's actually a cap, or rather a floor here. And for every product, it's going to be slightly different. So the on-demand course is going to be different for the live online course because you have to take into account live class sessions. But for the on-demand course, which we're showing here, the floor that we've chosen is 70 hours. And again, that's flexible in the sense that we can always change it at any time. But just know that a student can't put themselves into a bad position through the flexibility of our calendar. All right, so now that we have a pretty good understanding of how the calendar gets assembled, let's look at the calendar itself. So as you can see, it has scheduled out my assignments from now, the 5th, the 18th, all the way to my test date, which was June 6th. Let's get there. There it is, June 6th. As you can see, like what I'm doing that final week is I'm taking a practice test, prep test 159, and then reviewing it, then stepping into my test date. It's worth noting here, I can also look at this at a monthly view as well. Now, one of the things that could happen when a student first encounters their calendar is they might notice how much work is here. So all of the things that they just put into the onboarding quiz, like their availability and their test date, is changeable by going to the settings page. So here, I'll just click that again. I did that a bit quick. Click on this gear icon, settings, and here you're able to update your completion date or your test date, your weekly availability and any days you want to take off. Or let's say you have a weekly override, which just means, let's say 1 week I want to take a vacation. So in the future, I could say, I want to take a vacation in April. This week here, the 19th, great. That week, I want to do 1 hour. So it says, sure, every other week you're going to get assigned 10 hours, but that 1 week in April will only give you 1. I'm not going to bother actually saving this because I'm actually going to be here in April, but we do have that level of flexibility by week basis for our students. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that and discard my changes. But here's the thing, right? A student will undoubtedly realize they've either overestimated or underestimated their availability. And the settings page allows them to change their commitment levels based on where they are and where their life currently is. Now I'm tempted to jump into the assignments themselves. I'm going to hold back here and focus on the bottom of the screen. These are where our workshops or channel sessions are going to be housed. Right off the bat, I know workshops isn't the right word, so by the time we launch, it's going to say channel instead of workshop. But unlike study plan where the channel sessions were buried, 1 click away into that channel page, we've actually brought that up to the front and incorporated it into the student's calendar. So let's click onto one of these. So here, for instance, the session for tonight, How to Know Your Friends, put on by Jeff, this is the class description. So we have the follow-along PDFs here, the post-reflection exercises, a bio of Jeffrey himself, and the lesson recording, which I'll bring this up here, where a student can access if they need to. So the hope here is that by putting the channel on the front page in the student's schedule itself, we're going to get more compliance and more attention to this very important tool. All right, I feel like we talked about so many things on the calendar page or the schedule page, but we haven't actually done anything on the calendar itself. So it's time to do that. Let's walk through a couple of these assignments to see what the look and feel is of this new LMS is. One of the first things our students have to do is take a diagnostic. Let's click into here. So when they actually go to take it, one thing we want to point out is that they're launched directly into the Law Hub test, assuming they're logged in. And this is important because previously there was the ability for a student to incorrectly or accidentally take their practice test in our in-house LMS test UI called ExamSim. And that wasn't a good experience. So instead, we've built it so that students cannot do that and they must take it on LawHub. In other words, they can only take it on LawHub. But as you know, LawHub doesn't have the best review capabilities, so we also incorporated the ability to still review on our internal ExamSim system. So this is the same thing that we have now. We see the scaled score, the overall performance. Don't look at my score, it's private. I didn't do a good job. But again, all the features you're used to and our students are used to are still here because we're using the same review system as on study plan. Okay, so you can take the test on LawHub and review it on our system. But let's check out what our core lessons look like. So I'm going to jump ahead to the strength and weaken lesson, because it's a simple one. There's only 3 assignments within it. Strength and weaken questions. And this is a good overview of how we've structured the core lessons in this LMS. We start off with a video lesson. These are our prepare videos. You can watch it here.
Now let's launch.
There's Irene. After, we have our interactive practice. So our storyline asset, we could practice here. Then finally, we have our review quiz. Or excuse me, this is called the perform quiz, my apologies. Where you could launch it and take it through the exam sim interface. And I'm going to go ahead and just complete it. I don't think this one's very long. Or I could be wrong, it's very long. I thought it was short though, let's see. Only 6 questions. I'm not going to bother answering them though. Just going to jump ahead, submit it. And there you go. So the way we interact with this is very similar to how we were on study plan. Again, the difference is just it's housed within this calendar. And that marks the end of our video. If you've continued to watch this long, thank you. I am glad you're putting in the effort to understand the ins and outs of this migration. Now, this video alone isn't going to be enough for you to really understand thoroughly the on-demand experience for the LSAT course. So we're going to be giving you even more resources. For instance, we didn't talk about what the exact instructional order is or the yield of all of our assignments. But don't worry, you will receive that before launch. And this isn't the last video in this series. The next one's going to be covering our live online experience, which is going to be very similar to On Demand, except with live classes. And in that video, we'll also dig deeper into the performance page, as well as the activity library, which we've alluded to and shown in other products last video, but we haven't got to just yet in our LSAT series. So stay tuned, and thanks for your attention.